Hello there. Welcome to the Marriage Unmasked podcast. Today we are talking about quietly quitting in your marriage. And that's a painful and a hard thing to go through.
Yeah. I mean, if you are quietly quitting, you are in pain. You're really hurting. It might sound like the thoughts in your head like maybe this isn't meant to be, I don't care about this anymore. And the reason why you're thinking those things is because it's so painful that you just feel exhausted. You just feel like you just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, maybe you've stopped dreaming for good things in your marriage. You've stopped hoping. You've lost some of that hope and you don't know how to get it back.
In a healthy marriage, you envision the future, right? You plan things, you're thinking about, and that's a beautiful thing, right? To have this vision for your marriage. And when you're quietly quitting, you've lost that. You're just not thinking that way anymore, because you're kind of checking out, right? And this is so, it's very, this is you're not the only one. If you are struggling in this way, right, you're not the only one. I want you to know that I see some of these things in myself. I feel like there's like a micro quietly quitting, and I've micro quietly quit.
I honestly wonder if every marriage has seasons of this, like where you are kind of micro, like you said, quietly quitting. Because I have been there as well. And you start to just, yeah, you start to go numb, to the relationship, and you start to actually just go through the motions in almost like a survival mode kind of way instead of really engaging and working and like being really alive in the marriage relationship.
Yeah. I mean, when I was kind of going through it, I remember I was just trying to just like keep the peace, right? I was so tired of fighting. I was so tired of the pain of, conflict and being hurt, that I was just like, keep the peace, and then just feeling very numb inside, like feeling very empty, feeling very discouraged. So, like, deeply discouraged by it. And I think that's how my body was coping, with like the almost depression of it in the marriage, that I was, you know, that's how I was showing up, because my body was in so much pain in that way, right? So you're not alone,
No.
I also remember part of what that looked like for me, when I was quietly quitting, was like avoiding times that we would normally spend together. And I know we've both done that. Like we usually spend our evenings together, and sometimes when we don't, it's not always because we're quietly quitting. It might be because we need to work on some healing.
Yeah.
But there have been times though where we are quietly quitting, where like maybe I'll brush my teeth and stuff like that at a different time than him, right? Times when you're going to be together, you avoid that. That's another sign that you're quietly quitting, is if you're avoiding times together like that. And maybe you're going to bed early so you don't have to do a bedtime routine together, or you're switching up something in your routine, so that you're not.
And for men, it might look like pulling extra hours at work, like because you're feeling validated at work. You're feeling, like that's where you're getting your sense of worth, perhaps, and you're doing extra time at work. You always think of the guy like pulling into the driveway and just sitting in the car for a few minutes after work. I mean, that doesn't necessarily. Sometimes that's a safe thing to do, but but it's that energy. It's that energy of just like exhaustion and like feeling like I don't want to go inside. I don't want to deal with everything. I just want to numb out right now.
Yeah. And for wives, maybe it's work too, but maybe it's like you're pouring all your energy into your kids, right? Maybe you are scrolling on your phone, like you are just in this mind numbing, like if we're together or it's time we normally would spend together, we're just on our phones. You've probably seen, at a restaurant or something, where you see someone on a date, right? But instead of communicating, they're scrolling their phones, or they're staring off in another direction. And that's just I mean, it doesn't always maybe mean this, but
Right.
I think sometimes there's pain there, but they're trying to maybe go through the motions, or, they're trying to show up in a way where there's just so much unhealed pain there. And so that's what it looks like, distracting in whatever way that is, whether it's pouring into your kids or, pouring into work or whatever. Maybe it's doing housework, maybe it's doing yard work, working on your car. Yes. I mean, we've heard this from so many couples.
That's true.
We've worked with couples who are quietly quitting, and we've seen it in a lot of different things.
Some hobby becomes more important than working on the marriage. And so, he's working on his truck, he's working outside, he's doing something else. He needs to go in his man cave for quite a while and crack a couple beers or whatever. And not that those things are necessarily, like that's fine if it's done in the context of a healthy relationship. But if you're doing those things to numb out, to avoid having conflict in the relationship, to avoid spending time together, then there's something wrong. Then you're really quietly quitting in the relationship. Like we said, there can be some micro versions of that, where it's not as serious, and then it can become a bigger issue as it becomes more macro and it becomes more of the routine of the marriage, and you're in that place. It becomes a growing distance between you two.
Yeah. Saying yes to good things, like that's what we see a lot of with couples that are struggling with, is like, well, it seems like it's a good thing, right? Well, I'm pouring into our kids, or I'm working, right? I'm providing for my family, or I'm taking care of the garden or whatever, right? And so it is a good thing, but is that good thing distracting, taking away from the marriage and the healing that needs to happen there? And that's really the question to ask. Also another sign that you're quietly quitting is when you don't ask for help anymore, or you don't pray for your marriage anymore. I've also seen this where wives will like tell themselves, just be grateful, like just be grateful that your husband provides for you, or just be grateful, and kind of go to this invalidating of their own emotions, and then they miss out too. They're not grieving the marriage that they hoped for. They're just trying to
survive. Really. It's like a survival mode. You're like, put your shell on and you're like, okay, well, that's just not going to happen, and I'm just going to have to resign myself to a marriage that I didn't actually envision.
And you can also see it when people are they're out with their friends, or they're wherever, and their personality is just shining, right? But then when they're home with their spouse, or they're spending time with their spouse, it's just like this guarded, almost like a shell of a person, right? That shows up. And
that can even happen with the kids to some extent. Like somebody lights up around the kids, and that could be the husband or the wife, because the kids have kind of become more of an outlet for that natural personality and that like love and care and compassion and all those things. So you see people come alive around their kids, but then not coming alive around their spouse.
Yeah. And none of this means that you're bad. None of this means you're bad, or you should be ashamed of yourself.
Like you said, everybody at certain times goes through this stuff.
It's just that your heart has been hurting a long time. And so these are kind of like symptoms of your heart in need of healing, and your heart in need of love and compassion and validation. Just like your body might tell you, symptoms if you're having a rash, or if you are, right, then your stomach hurts after you eat, gluten or dairy, right? And then these are symptoms telling you. And the same thing here, these quietly quitting, signs are a symptom of like, hey, my heart's been hurting a long time, and I need to bring in some love and compassion and validation, not shame, right? Not blame, not accusation or judging yourself.
Right.
We're definitely not judging you.
It's just a sign that your marriage needs healing. And it's just kind of a wake up call when you realize those things, that, okay, well, I need to find ways to heal this and heal my own heart, and, pour into my spouse. So why does this happen in the marriage relationship? And it can happen for a ton of different reasons, really. But I'm going to name a few of them. One is like chronic disappointment. Like it just keeps happening. You just keep on experiencing disappointment. You hope and you hope and you hope, and then you're disappointed and disappointed and disappointed. And what that does is it just you start to give up hope because of that chronic disappointment that keeps on happening.
Yeah.
Maybe it's unmet needs. Some of these kind of correlate with each other. There's unmet needs. There's a need for validation, and that's not ever getting met. And so that you start to give up hope that that need will be met. Maybe it's safety in the relationship, which we talked about in the last podcast about safety. Maybe it's trust that's been broken. We've experienced that in our relationship when I didn't do things that I promised to do, said I would do, and that was part of the contributing factor, honestly, to some of those micro times when we were, quietly.
Oh,
I was quietly
definitely.
quitting,
Oh, I was the only one quietly quitting.
or I was quietly quitting. I think, well, and one that came up for me, I think a lot of it was like giving up hope that I could change. I mean, like that I didn't feel like I had the capacity to change, that I felt stuck or I felt numb in this pattern, and some of that had to do with my own thoughts about my identity and my worth. So like that can also contribute. And then like there was criticism and things like that were in play, and that fed some of that feeling of worthlessness or whatever. And then when you feel depressed and worthless,
You're
you don't
quietly quitting
you're
on
quietly
yourself.
quitting on yourself and the marriage at the
Yeah.
same time, and that
Yeah.
was me for certain periods, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. This also can happen because of, like I talked about earlier, the like conflict fatigue, where you are just so tired of fighting and you're so tired of getting nowhere in these unhealthy conflicts that are actually inflicting more pain. They're actually doing more damage than helping. And then, you just get tired of that. That's a very normal reaction.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like PTSD because you're constantly getting hurt, and nothing's getting fully resolved, and so I mean, a state of constant fighting and a constant trying to like that takes an emotional toll.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Also, when you feel unseen, if you feel unseen in your marriage, if you feel unheard, if you feel unappreciated, if you feel disrespected, I know that's a big one for men specifically. To feel disrespected. We've heard that from men, husbands who are really hurting in their marriages. They feel so disrespected. And also sometimes we quietly quit because we're trying to protect ourselves. Like if I don't care, then I can't get hurt. And I know that's been me. That's been me for sure too.
Like putting the armor on.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Like if I keep caring, I keep getting hurt. So I just won't care. I'll just pretend. Well, I do care, but I'll pretend that I don't care, and then I won't get hurt. And you know.
And really, that just hides hurt because you're still hurt.
Yes.
And you're just really hiding it.
Yeah. So the danger of staying here, right, of continuing to quietly quit is, it feels safer than if you abruptly quit, or if you leave the marriage, right? It feels safer, but it erodes that connection and intimacy so much. And it leads to isolation. It leads to resentment. It can lead to affairs, emotional affairs, sexual affairs. And it can lead to physical distance, or even, this is what ends up leading to divorce, is quietly quitting, that you're just on your way to that.
Yeah, you're on your way to that, exactly.
Or you're on your way to staying in a marriage that has no connection or intimacy, which is definitely not God's best for you either. Right. And so you just, you can end up just sitting in this marriage where you're just trying to survive it, basically.
Yeah, you might have some commitment left, but it's kind of you're kind of surviving on that commitment alone.
You're just committed. You're basically committed to, not really fully giving yourself, because quietly quitting is really closing your heart off to your spouse. Yeah. It's taking away the vulnerability, and it's, closing off this beautiful, your light, really, right? Who you are. It's closing that off to them. And so that's what marriage is all about. It's about this beautiful, intimate, relationship of love. And so, yeah, when you stay in that quietly quitting space, you're missing out on that. And so, when we emotionally check out, we stop giving our spouse the chance to repair with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, that's so hard too. Because if your spouse is quietly quitting and you're not, they're, how do you make that work, right?
Yeah,
I've heard from so many wives who feel like they are trying to make their marriages work, but they feel, yeah, like they don't have the chance to repair, maybe because their husband is quietly quitting. And so you're just kind of shutting that down. You're shutting that opportunity for healing down. And so
yeah,
that's where I want to encourage you to re-engage with your heart and with your spouse. Start with re-engaging with your own heart, right? I know that if you're in this right now, you've kind of shut your heart down in a certain way. And so start with just naming where you're at. Like, I've been shutting down, right? Just stating the fact, right? Kind of taking ownership for where you're at. I've been shutting down.
and maybe even listing the areas that you've been shutting down in. Like, this is where I've been shutting down this, and this in my marriage. This is where I'm really feeling shut down.
Yeah, if that's helpful for you, because it's this the reason to do this is not like to shame yourself.
Absolutely not.
It's just to be aware, right? It's to be aware. So I've been shutting down, and I don't want to live like this anymore. And so then bring it to God. Unload all these things to God. You can bring anything to Him, and all He offers you back is more love, more compassion, more kindness, more, validation.
I feel like we say this so often because it's so important, because it's such an important part of the healing process, and it's missed so often. It's something we don't often think to do, is to bring these things to God and to really pour out your heart to Him.
Yeah. So I offer a 6-day free challenge, which we'll have in the show notes for wives. Sorry, I don't have that for husbands, but for wives. And it is so powerful. And one of the reasons is because I help you walk into bringing this to God, right? When your husband isn't showing up, that's what the 6-day challenge is for wives who feel alone in that. And so they don't have to depend on their husband to change, to move forward. You can do that with God. So if that's something that is interest to you, the link will be in the show notes for that 6-day free challenge. It's fantastic.
For guys, if you are struggling with it, please reach out, because I could also do some one-on-one with you, and we could talk through some of these things. And sometimes that's all we need, is that awareness and another guy to talk to about these things and kind of reinvigorate things a little bit.
Yeah. And then, when you have realized how safe you are with God, then when you feel that love and you've opened your heart back up to all that love and compassion that He offers, and you feel safe with Him, then you can start to open your heart up again to your spouse, and you don't have to expect to fix your marriage in one day.
That's
right?
not going to help if you do. It's an unrealistic expectation.
Just start small. One kind word, one conversation where maybe you do open your heart up a little bit more, and you share from a little bit of a vulnerable place. Just one little thing at a time is the way to move forward in this. It's not thinking that you have to do some big dramatic thing or it's over.
Just like quietly quitting is a slow process of backing out, getting out of quietly quitting can be a slow process of re-engaging and getting back in. And it's these little steps, not expecting perfection, not necessarily expecting huge results, but just expecting, as I keep showing up little by little, we are going to connect more. And it's going to be, you start to create more hope in the relationship again.
Yeah, I mean, you're on your own healing journey. I encourage you to do your own healing work, right? And then as you're healing, then you're showing back up to your marriage, right? You are opening your heart back up to them. And so it's a process, not something that, you can't well, God can heal in,
Yeah.
in any moment, but
Yes.
usually our healing is a process, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And for wives, again, I have something so exciting for you. My restored community, you can sign up for it. It is a safe space to heal. It's a safe space to open up and get encouragement from other wives. It's wives only. And it's just incredible. Even if your marriage feels like it's on life support, this is a place you can come to. You get weekly coaching from me. You get a community of women. You get our entire Healing Your Marriage course, which is awesome. That price is included in the membership.
Yeah.
So you get so many amazing monthly challenges, all kinds of trainings. Just it's an incredible, it's the most robust thing I've ever offered. For such an affordable price. So it's incredible. And I encourage you, we're going to have the link in the show notes for that as well. I encourage you to get in the restored community. It's just going to be a beautiful place for you to work on healing and feel safe and loved.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think a lot of good is going to come from that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the future when I can start a men's group and all that too, because
Yeah.
that is going to be really good. So stay tuned for that, because if you're listening to this, months out, that may also be an opportunity for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And as always, we would love to hear from you. We welcome your feedback, and we are here to support you.